Soon I'll show you what true power really is.
You might remember that about 5 or 6 games back, we played an Xbox original release called Azurik Rise of Perathia. It was a game that, while being fairly unfavorably reviewed at the time of its release, was something that I had a great amount of joy out of. After playing the full thing as comprehensively as possible, the series has continued growing over time, as there aren't too many other people who have ever really covered it. But the cool thing that's come from this is a few developers of Azurik have found their way to the videos and have since linked me and sent me several cool stories and behind the scenes moments and things I really want to talk to you guys about today. So what you just watched as we opened this video was a really early pre-release 2001 prototype promotional piece for the game, in which it wasn't even called Azurik, as you saw. It was called Guardians of the Elements. I think it was called Guardian of the Elements. And I just thought, though there's only a tiny handful of people on planet Earth who probably care about this at this point, I wanted to share the things I found out, because there are certain things that the Azurik community just doesn't really know. So you guys will know that this game had that really cool, if you remember, in the credit sequence, behind the scenes outtake section, this.
Anyway, let's discuss the elements. Say them to me again. Air, fire, water, come on. Come on. Air, fire, water, come on. Come on. It's been a lot of years now. We go over this every day.
Which was featuring the voice of the one guy who did the entire game, a dude called David Scully, who also, by the way, was Sarge in Halo. And that gave a bit of an insight into the behind-the-scenes stuff, but today I wanted to give you 2 more really cool things out of a great number, including probably what is now one of my most prized possessions in the whole world. Seriously, it's amazing. So first, I want to talk to you guys about one of my main correspondents recently, a guy called Stephen Clark Wilson. Now, this dude was one of the Azurik project leads. He was a guy who oversaw the creation of Adrenium, who made Azurik, and the development of the entire game, as far as I'm aware, through a period of about 10 months. This entire, Microsoft were looking for a 100-hour experience, and this entire thing was made in about 10 months. They hit maybe the 60 to 80-hour mark with it. Anyway, Stephen was one of the key people making basically all the big decisions about the game. In fact, we talked a lot in the series in the later portions, especially with the final cutscene that seemed to sequel bait a little bit. We talked about the idea of, wow, could there have been an Azurik 2 if the thing was received a little bit better, perhaps? Well, Stephen was one of, as far as I'm aware, if not the guy or 2 guys that actually made the decision on whether there would be an Azurik 2 or not. And I've been talking to him an awful lot. In fact, on every single video of the series we did, you can go to the comments now, and he has typed out a huge wall of text and of interesting anecdotes and things about the various areas of the game, and his take looking back on it over a decade after having developed the thing. So if that's not cool enough and there's not enough information in that for you guys, I actually asked him just before this video to comment on that prospect of there being a sequel to Azurik. And he says this. He says, regarding the sequel, Microsoft thought it would be nice if for Azurik 2, they reused all of the art assets from the original game and made something similar for half the money. And I'm quoting, what you can see on screen right now is a direct quote from him. He says, this was probably an idea from someone who had never played the game. And he says that since the key fact of Azurik is the interlocking world puzzle solving, reuse would have been really hard and kind of pointless, as all the puzzles would need to be new, which would have affected most of the art. So we politely said we couldn't do it for that amount of money. So this is kind of a little bit more detailed quote on something I'd heard before, which was, yeah, that basically they had been offered to continue it as a franchise, and when they were originally making Azurik, they were thinking about doing that, which explains the final cutscene. But Microsoft's offer of going so low with what they would want to make the game kind of put them off, I guess, and they ended up pursuing other directions, which is a bit of a shame. But I mean, if there would have been anything bad about Azurik having, in my opinion, an unfair reception when it released, it would have been having kind of a literally half-baked sequel on half the amount of money and just reusing a ton of stuff. So perhaps it was the correct decision to make in the end. Anyway, so beyond all this cool stuff that Steven's been talking about, and I won't just rehash everything he said word for word in all the comments, that's up to you guys if you want to see it. One particularly exciting thing is he did dig up the remnants of their old file transfer protocol server, and he gave a glimpse by rehosting it into a lot of the really early development stuff for the game, which, as you can see here, I'm actually running through now. This is the remnants of the old FTP, and I asked him for permission. I can actually link this to you guys, so if you want to go through this in much more detail, and there's a lot of really cool stuff on here, there is a link in the description. I'll just pick out some fun stuff. So first of all, we have the early screenshots page, which is wild. Posted 2002, the 2nd of February. As requested on the Team Xbox Azurik forum, here are some early screenshots. So this is some of the earliest stuff we can see from the game. 21st, 2000, it's barely got anything. And we got some comments here as well, I think from Steven. He says, this is the earliest remaining screenshot. Actually, it's 2, showing out the blocked out area of the first fire level, and then the first ever arted out level of the game, which, funnily enough, were both fire realms, because the game actually starts in the water realm, so I always kind of thought that might have been where they start, but obviously, behind the scenes, things very rarely work out that way. As this was the first level ever created at this level of detail, it was later refined in April 2001. So we got more screenshots down here. In this early shot from May 2000, you can see how the designers have roughed out basic shapes for the area where the fire and water realms meet. So this is this really stunning section of the game where you can see the lava fall and the waterfall, right? The character in the shot, I think at this point was called Garrett 2, as that was Azurik's original name. And this was the second version of him. This version was never textured. He's just like a monk at this point. This shot was from June. It was the first in a series of a screenshot of the week shots done for the team internally. It's a dramatic moment for Garrett as he stares into the sunset. I think this is Garrett 4, the final untextured Azurik. And you can see his hair is starting to come now. This is that cool tunnel. Again, Fire Realm. You guys might remember this. This is July 2000. And it's weird because this is a really exotic looking place with what they did with the lighting. Funny to think it was one of the earlier things they did. And just a ton more early screenshots. Obviously, there's a lot to go through, so I won't go through every single one, but here you get some early Air Realm stuff and so forth. So that's just one page, though. Some other cool things as well. They've got a cheat list here, for what it's worth, which is cheats and comments on them from the devs. So if you go to something like, say, Game FAQs, you know, people know the cheats for this game. I talked about them in the original series. But here is actually got some extra information about the cheats and where they come from. And in fact, one cheat on this list that Game FAQs doesn't have. So I wonder whether people didn't know about it. But so you've obviously got level select and so forth. One of the things I found really interesting was down here under the save game cheat, which, as I talked to you guys about, when I played this game as a kid, it was such a hard game for me that I was reliant on this cheat, and I bugged my game out with it, as it was so easy to do, because as you can see from the devs here, they say, look, problems, many, you can easily save in an unsafe manner, and they give this huge list here. Don't save on a moving platform, in the middle of a boss battle, near too many enemies, near a low overhang, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. But really interestingly, here's a note here. This was the first cheat released, but not to the web. It was to an individual who went and blabbed it out. Sigh. If you screw up and save in an unsafe space, try using the level cheat to teleport somewhere good. And here, this last cheat, this is the cheat that wasn't on Game FAQs. I'm not saying no one's ever heard of it, but it's called Time Just Flies, and it speeds up the day-night cycle. Benefits day-night cycle goes very fast, so if you're bored in the stormy sea and waiting for things to change, you can turn this on. I have a vague recollection of this cheat before looking at this on this little hosted site here. Another really fascinating thing, and I don't even really know how to read this, but is the shortest path analysis by Jeff Clinton. So check this out, all right? This guy, as far as I remember the backstory to this guy played through the game relentlessly and like tried to sequence it to figure out how fast you could get all the powers and all the fragments and daisy chain everything perfectly. Kind of what you see with speedrunners routing these days, right? He essentially did it for his own game way back when, and this would be the order you would play everything in. So you start in the water hub, and then you go to the fire ring, and you go to the town, and this shows as you get your different power upgrades and different disc fragments. I'm not sure what the song column over here reads or means, and I'm sure if I remembered more about the game at this point, this would be quite an interesting thing to dissect and see whether the community has ended up coming to a different consensus. But in this one page, essentially, if you can interpret it, this is like a really quick walkthrough and key and guide to the entire world, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so they got a bunch of very old videos like the one you saw at the start of this video I'm making here. I won't go through all of those. A couple of extra outtakes where they're goofing around. There was also, really curiously, a picture of a real-life axiom that was made. This is a real life, and it looks huge. Unless there's maybe something weird going on with this picture here, so that's very exciting. Speaking of real-life stuff, something else very cool happened. It took me a long time to sort of get and come through the mail, but another developer by the name of Blendy, who was also working on Azurik, got into contact with me after seeing the LP and sent me something really, really awesome. This was kind of the thing that tipped me over the edge on wanting to do this video so long after we actually played the game. And he sent me, physically, in the mail, to my address, a map. And it's a very rare map, and it's a very exciting map. Now, I could try and fumble through an explanation of what this is myself, but I may as well just quote the guy himself. So this is what Blendy says about what I received in the mail. I'm really excited to show you guys. So he says that early on in development, we made a drawing of each level, some small like icon almost art of each level for the game, of each level at their initial inception, and then arrange them all together to see where and how the levels connected to the rest of the world. So this was before the levels themselves had actually been made. And interestingly, I've heard that there was an entire level from each realm, or maybe even 2 levels from each realm, that they originally wanted to put in the game that never ended up going forward, but exist on this map. So this map is a more complete version of Azurik, of Perathia, than what we actually ended up getting in the game itself. He says many of the drawings are quite different from the actual levels that we ended up creating. He goes on, and later he says, when we laid out the entire world, the other level designers drew each of these sketches to show the intention and the features of each world/area. Then we posted them all together on a large board to give the whole team an impression of our world-building intentions. Obviously, many things changed from the initial sketches, but the world's locations and functions remained. To my knowledge, there are only 2 or 3 of these maps remaining, of which I had 2. He's got a big framed one, apparently. So, he sent me one. So I actually have one of these early development maps. It's so cool, guys. This is what it looks like. So I took a ton of pictures here, guys. I'm actually going to host a huge number of them on my Google Drive because there's just too many for me to get through on this one video. It's such a huge map. But this is what it looks like with a potato for scale there for you. It appeared in this very kind of long, thin, cardboard white tube. Here it is being unfurled a little bit. That's the material on the inside. The material itself is incredibly thin. It's basically a photocopy, as far as I can see, of some original map that had the actual handwritten annotations on it. So it's very thin. The text that appears on it is tiny. The map itself is huge, and the text is really small. So I've taken the highest clarity pictures I possibly can so you guys can see all the little annotations that are written on there. But even then, it's pretty difficult, even with a naked eye, for me to read some of the text. But here it is being unfurled. Here's a little video I took of me actually unrolling it, so you can see here. Unfortunately, those rips, I can't do anything about. I didn't cause those. I'm kind of tempted to maybe pay someone to get a clean, fixed-up version of this, you know, take it in somewhere. But there you go. So this is the full thing, weighed down on each corner to stop unfurling by potatoes. And that's the map of the world, really. Here's a video I took. So that square in the center is the village itself. And if we zoom right in, for example, this is the life realm, you can see how tiny that text is on there and how difficult it is to read. So what I did was each level is represented by a little picture, quite a pretty nice little picture actually. And what I've done is I've taken a close-up photo of each and individual one with all of the text around it, which you guys can see here now as scrolling by. So there is a lot of these pictures, like a huge number of these. Honestly, I wish that I'd played the game a little bit more recently so that I could remember where the differences are and maybe where some zones on this thing are being portrayed that never made it into the game in the end. But every little bit of information and detail is on there. I will host the whole archive for any of you guys interested that were maybe big fans of the game and you hadn't seen this stuff before. Anyone is welcome to rehost or post any of this stuff anywhere you like. And well, what more is there to say, really? This is really cool. This is like one of my most prized possessions. I think this is awesome for a random game not many people care about. But what a cool thing to be sent, guys. right, like, honestly. And sharing it with you all is obviously just the cherry on the top. It wouldn't be just for me to hoard. But yeah, look at this beautiful art. Look at all these nice little images here. Excellent stuff. And yeah, I wanted to talk about this, guys, because it's been fascinating for me, and it's been really, really cool. I'm really grateful to all the devs that have been in contact with me and basically worked on the game. And hopefully this has been interesting for you all to share in as well. I'll see what I can do, because right now I have to keep this thing rolled up and just hidden at the top of my wardrobe because I don't want to damage it anymore. Maybe in the future I can get like a nicer version of it done and put it up on a wall or something. How cool myself. How cool would that be? But yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. Do be sure to check out the links in the description. And I will see you very shortly for the next series, which should be very, very fun. Cheers, everyone, and I'll see you next time.